Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of Area 312 Rock and Metal Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kent, along with my co-host,
Rex.
Friends, today regarding our next special guests, their 6-song EP was released in 1985 during the burgeoning days of Christian rock and metal, bearing the hard rock guitars and the atmospheric keyboards in the vein of such bands as Loverboy and Night Ranger. This release right here is considered a cult classic for those in the know. Red, White, and Blue from the band Battlecry, and today we have our very special guest from the band, guitarist Bob Giverink and keyboardist and vocalist Mariko Giverink. Welcome, Bob and Mariko. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We're honored as well.
Yeah, this
Yes,
is
sir.
really
Yes, sir.
a privilege.
Well, thank you all for coming on. And, I dug this out of, and I've got the album behind me, but I dug this out of my old, I have a crate now full of cassettes and everything. And these things are smaller than I remember. And the lettering just keeps getting smaller for some reason on these. But I have had this since I was 14 years old. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But do you all remember the plastic cassette cases that housed about 15 cassettes in them?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This sparked a
we
lot
had
of
a
memories,
stack.
and I remember having that plastic cassette case on family trips in our Dodge Caravan. I was always seated in the back with the headphones on, and this was housed in there with about 14 other cassettes. And so you guys gave me a lot of great mileage on the road with my family. So I just want to thank you.
Wow. What a story.
I'm surprised that thing hasn't fallen apart.
Oh, no. No, it's in good condition. Bob and Mariko, we like to start at square one. And again, such an honor to have you both. Bob, you're a great lead guitar player. Mariko, you're a wonderful keyboardist and vocalist. And right now in my head, I'm referencing the song Not Tough Enough from the album Red, White, and Blue. It showcases that song in particular, both of your talents so splendidly. I'd like to ask you both. In your respective home while growing up, was there music in the household, whether blasting from the radio, or perhaps you had family members who also performed?
Not really. We didn't have any musicians.
Well, tell him about your first guitar experience, since he wanted to be a guitar player his whole life.
I when I saw the Monkees play and that TV show, I just knew that I wanted to play guitar. So I told my mom, I said, hey, I want an electric guitar for Christmas. And she goes, okay, so you know how you look around for the presents. Well, I found the guitar underneath the bed, but I never found the amplifier. And I was like, I wonder what she did with the amplifier. So come Christmas morning, that guitar was out there. It was like a Tobacco Sunburst, kind of a Strat type guitar.
Probably from Sears.
It was from Sears. I think she paid like $18 for it. And I said, this is great, Mom. But where's the amplifier for it? And she goes, well, it's an electric guitar. Doesn't it plug into the wall? Like an iron. And so she goes, I can't afford to buy the amp, so we're going to have to take it back. And so she took it back and got me this really gnarly acoustic guitar for like $12 or whatever. And the action was like a half-inch high. I said, I can't play this thing. And so I sold to my sister for $1. And then they said, it's just a fad, you'll grow out of it. And I always wanted to play guitar. I always wanted to play. When I got 18, I got myself a job, bought my first guitar, and then
Started lessons.
Yeah,
right?
started lessons and haven't turned back since.
And he still plays every day.
And that's wonderful. And
Yeah.
we'll get into this a little bit down the road too, but I know that you both are still performing music, and I think that's wonderful too. Mariko, how about you in your home growing up?
So
Radio
I
and
had
family?
always, I apparently I came from a musical family on my dad's side who I never met them. They were all in Mexico. My dad was an immigrant. My mom was an immigrant from Japan. And so I had no contact. I didn't know who my cousins or my aunts or uncles were, but later in life, I found out that I came from a very musical family, but I didn't know that as a child. I just knew I had this urge to play and to sing and make up songs. And they started my brother with piano, and he just didn't want to practice. He wasn't interested, the whole parents trying to get their kid to play, but I was obsessed with it. And so I begged them to let me have piano lessons, and I was only like 5 years old. And I have one of my earliest memories is being at a garage sale. I see a little toy xylophone, and I pick up the sticks and I just played a song. Like, I think it was Mary Had a Little Lamb, And I remember that person at the garage sale telling my mom, like, how'd she know how to do that? And my mom said, I don't know. She just tinkering around. And so looking back, I had that gift. I was born with that gift, the ear and the just being able to play whatever I heard. So my mom, after I begged for so long, she did let me start piano lessons. And unlike my brother, I was obsessed with it. I practiced every day. She never had to, light a fire under me to get me to practice. And I was a classical pianist. So I learned to read fluently. By the time I was 13, 14, I could perform really complicated songs, Flight of the Bumblebee. I mean, I can't do that now, but I, was just practicing every day, and I was a concert pianist. So,
You did competitions too, though.
I don't
Didn't you
know that I did. Yeah, I did. I won the 8th grade talent show. I forgot about and awesome. I remember the prize. It was a 45 Blinded by the Light.
Manfred Mann or Bruce Springsteen?
No, it was
Manfred Mann.
Manfred Mann. Yeah. That I remember the prize.
Well, that was a worthy prize. That was a cool song.
Trans-Siberian Orchestra, by the way.
Yeah.
Some of the guys are in Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Manfred Mann.
Oh, but, yeah, the Earth Band.
I really capitalized on this gift. I would, in 7th and 8th grade, we had a music room, and me and my friends would go in there, and I'd charge them $0.25 to play their favorite songs. So I'd play Star Wars theme or Cantina Band, or, just kind of the fun songs of the day. I'd play Ragtime, Scott Joplin, and I would just earn quarters from playing piano. So that's my musical journey. Later in life, I did find out that when I went to Mexico in my 40s, I met my aunt, and my aunt was famous. I mean, she was famous, like A-list famous. Everywhere we went, everyone knew who she was. I mean, we could be 2 hours away, and she was known as like the Marilyn Monroe of Mexico. She starred in films as a 19, 20, 21-year-old. She sang, had this beautiful voice, and she was still singing in her 80s when I met her and performing. So
her name was America.
Her stage name was America Martin, because my last name was Martinez, and she changed her stage name to America Martin. And she was just, her whole dining room wall was plastered with all of the films she had been in and records that she had done. And the funny thing is I resemble her more than anyone else in my family. Like, physically, she looked like me, and it was just very like, whoa, this is a little strange. But so I think that it was in my family, but my parents didn't play or sing or anything. My brother didn't. And I was the first musician in my family, my immediate family, and Bob was the first musician in his family.
Well, actually, my sister played piano.
Oh, cool. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. She played piano and sang.
Wow.
Yeah. Carole King.
Oh,
things you find out on Area 312 here. So
yeah, we're learning a lot too.
I wonder, Mariko, my mom, she tried to get me back in the day, Bob, I'm thinking about your tobacco sunburst guitar that your mom got you. I wanted a guitar so bad back when I was a kid, and my mom really urged me to take my money and to buy a keyboard. And no offense, Mariko, but for a then young young kid with a mullet, you know, a keyboard wasn't as cool to me as a guitar was, you know.
Oh yeah, and the keytar just doesn't cut it.
Bob, you mentioned the Monkees. Now, regarding your guitar prowess, because you are a great lead player, I'd like to ask you both, did you have any specific musical influences for your respective instrument that you perform?
As far as, we were, believe it or not, when Kiss came out, we were diehard Kiss fans, loved Ace. I still like Ace, he's still doing his solo stuff and stuff, but I've always liked Ace Frehley, and then big Jimmy Page fan. And we even in the band today, we do some Zeppelin, but
Yeah,
I love Jimmy Page, his writing and his playing, and he's a big influence on me. But and then I went into a whole jazz type thing right before Battlecry. I did a film soundtrack for a skateboard movie, and the guy wanted to write like jazz stuff. So I was taking these lessons and learning a lot of jazz chords, major sevenths, minor sevenths, and all that. And I got to meet, I don't know if you know who Larry Carlton is. Larry Carlton is Steely Dan session player, Barbra Streisand. He was like the most well-known session player of the 80s, Larry Carlton. And I got to record at his house by Universal Studios. And so that was a lot of fun. And then right after that, we started doing Battlecry, and I got more into the rock scene. But yeah, I was into a whole 335 Mesa Boogie thing. It's kind of a big deal at that time.
Yeah, and I personally never aspired to play in a rock and roll band. I was the classical pianist, and then I got saved and they roped me into playing on the worship team, which was very controversial because I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I didn't know how to dress right. I didn't know how to, act right. I was so green, and yet my heart was just 100% for Jesus. And so my leaders recognized that. They put me on the worship team. I played piano and I sang backup. And that was my first introduction to playing off chord charts. I didn't even know what chord charts were. I had learned all this theory, and I finally got to put it into practice, and it all clicked. So
there was kind of a joke about her in the youth group from, I think, my business partner.
Don't tell.
Yeah, and they would joke around when Mariko first started coming to the youth group. She goes, "I can't believe that she would come to youth group in leopard skin spandex and skin tight, and they go stumble, stumble, stumble." And,
I didn't know what was proper. I didn't know, I was not raised.
You were just practicing for the latter 80s,
I didn't know, you're supposed to, I didn't know anything about modesty. I'd just grown up in this beach culture where I'm at the beach every day after school in my string bikini. And, one of my youth leaders had to tell me, it's not really proper to dress that way, especially at youth camp. You need to wear a one piece. It's like, oh, I didn't know. I wasn't trying to be, anything other than this is just kind of how I grew up. And I didn't know there was anything wrong with it. I didn't know about modesty and being immodest. But I learned, and they taught me, and they were very graceful. And,
well,
here I am.
I'm glad to know, Mariko, that they were graceful. We've had this discussion elsewhere, Rex and I, with some other artists. And, I grew up, I'm just a Christ follower. I'm non-denominational, but my parents raised me in the Baptist church. And, I was browbeat a lot for liking bands such as Battlecry and Striper and Petra. And, they used to, people used to say, well, they look like the world. But as I've grown older, what does the world look like? Aren't there crooked politicians and crooked televangelists and crooked lawyers wearing their three-piece suits and ties? Now, to me, that's dressing like the world. But I get it about the modesty, but it always begs the question, I mean, should Christians wear spandex? To be continued on a different episode.
We had that. We actually had that discussion with Battlecry 40 years ago. We had to wrestle with those issues.
Yes,
because we were a little edgy. Striper was a little edgy. It was very controversial. But I think down to we knew who we were at our core. That we knew what our motives were, and
sure.
Why we were doing it. And that's why just even hearing your story, I would love for you to expand on that too, and how you got a hold of that cassette, because that just blesses us, because you're doing all this, you're on the road. We played a lot. I mean, we were together all the time. We played a lot in Southern California back in those years. And you just don't know if you're, if you're affecting anybody, if you're bringing people closer to God, if you're helping their relationship, you just go and you play and then you leave. And just to hear a story like yours, for instance, or from another guy we heard recently on Facebook that found us, and he was somebody who had filmed us at one of our gigs and put out some footage on YouTube, and he found us on Facebook and just talked about how much of an influence we were. And so to hear those stories, just it just blesses our hearts to to think, wow, we had even if we had an impact on a small handful of people, then it was that's what we wanted to do.
The tide has turned on the land of the free. We closed our eyes and refused to see. The time has come to change our ways if we want to survive on the judgment day. Cheating, stealing, lying, raping, murder everywhere. Here comes so common things, it's like we don't even care. It's time we get together, start cleaning up the act, or we're gonna be judged.
We've heard this. Me and Kent Mariko have heard this a lot from artists, and we're kind of blown away by it, that they didn't realize, like you said, you're just going from city to city, and you don't really realize what impact or what kind of an impact, or if you're making an impact, and they're blown away by, like, you want to interview us now? Like,
I know.
40 years ago, from then,
Yeah.
like, who am I? And so it's kind of mind-blowing where they finally get to hear, like, kind of the story and the fruit of their labor, so to speak, with what they did for me back in 85. I was 17 years old, what that does for a 17-year-old, 16-year-old kid. And me and Kent say this all the time, is like, you and all these other bands were more or less our youth pastors, because me and Kent kind of have the same story about, with listening to that kind of music back in the day. My church was really conservative too, and so I was always getting the, that's devil music, Rex, and why are you listening to Res Band or whatever? And so you guys were really like our youth ministers for young teenage kids. So
that's
just
crazy.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The message, Jesus is the Lord, and that's the crux of the whole matter. But you guys were putting that in our language by the music, and that was our speak back in the day, and so thank you for that. Let's get into Battlecry then. Mariko, Bob, how did Battlecry form?
I'll let him tell about that, because
Okay.
I wasn't in it when they formed.
So Brett, the drummer, who's no longer with us, we've known each other since 7th grade, and we kind of, were in real tight in our earlier ages. Then we kind of spread apart after we kind of got out of high school. I hadn't heard much, and then I heard he got saved. Now, fast forward back a little bit, backwards. Have you ever seen the movie The Jesus Revolution?
Yes.
It was a story about Chuck Smith and
Was that Kelsey Grammer that was in it?
I think
Oh, I
so.
don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. He was in there. He was the pastor. He
Yes.
played the pastor.
Mhm.
Well, anyways, there was what they called the Jesus Freak movement that came out of that church. And I was on Manhattan Beach Pier because I was a surfer kid. And there was just a whole drove of people just running down the pier, passing out tracts and getting people saved. I accepted Christ at that time, but they did no follow up. I just said the sinner's prayer and that was it. And so that was in me, but I knew that I would come back to it at some point. Well, now fast forward back to Brett. I knew he got saved and people were saying, "Oh, Brett's saved now." And I knew at that time that I would be in a band with him, a Christian rock band. And we hadn't even talked about it. And then, so we started, I did actually get saved and started going to Harbor Church where Brett was going, Doug was going.
I was in the
Ron
youth
was
group, but we
going,
hadn't met.
Mariko was going. And so Brett was telling me, "Hey man, these guys, Ron and Doug, man, they're pretty good. We ought to get together and do a jam." So we got together and played a few times together. And Doug is a phenomenal musician and just the most incredible voice. I mean, we never
Amazing.
heard him sing a bad note. He could
Never.
do one take songs. He was amazing.
No,
And
and
so
he could be sick as a dog and just sing clear as
he
a
just
bell.
he would buy like a 2-liter thing of Dr. Pepper, and he said, "This is the magic right here. I have to have Dr. Pepper." And he would always have Dr. Pepper when he was singing. He goes, the caramel coat, it coats my throat. And so we would crack up at him, but he
just
would.
the most talented guy I've ever met.
And this
And
is
so
right?
they go, "It'd be
He's
great."
the voice on that CD,
Right.
on that cassette.
Not one side. There's 2 sides on the
Yeah.
cassette, right? There's
On
a
the
B side.
album, that's Doug.
On the vinyl, that's Doug. On the backside, the bootleg, that's Dave. Back to Doug. So we got together as a 4-piece, and Doug was like, "Man, it'd be great to have a keyboard player and a girl singer." And so this friend of ours named Brian, he goes, "Well, I know somebody." And so we asked Mariko if she wanted to come in and interview.
I'm like, no.
She didn't know how to play rock and roll or anything.
I've
But
never played with a band or.
Doug knew how to. He kind of showed her the rock chords, and she picked up on it pretty quick. And we bought a little Wurlitzer. I think it was. Was that what it was? A Wurlitzer?
Yeah, Wurlitzer.
And that's
And
about
Brett had a keyboard. I can't remember what it was. A Juno.
a Juno
He had
60.
a Juno. That was my rig. So I did.
But we didn't really use. Do you use a keyboard part?
Oh
too?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we
that's
had the
neat
Juno
line.
60 and a Wurlitzer.
Yeah, we had the Juno first, and that's what I came in and tried out on. But I didn't want to go. This friend Brian, he encouraged me to go, and I'm like, I've never played with a band before, and these guys are old. They're like, I mean, Bob was like 25, and Brett, and then Doug and Ron were like 28. I'm this 19-year-old teenager, girl, and coming into this, ratchet, like dark, down a dark alley in San Pedro in a bad neighborhood, going to audition. I didn't know any of these guys. I'd never met them before, but I think he may have even come with me. But he's like, "I know you could do it. Like, you can play anything." So I'm like, well, I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that kind of be fun to play in a rock and roll band, and it's Christian, and maybe this would be like fun. So I tried out, and they're like, "You're in." They showed me a couple lead lines. Doug showed me some blues chords. I just picked them up immediately. He had me sing. I remember clear as day exactly what that room. I remember the color of the room, the keyboard.
The color of the room was mocha brown.
It was mocha brown. It was
because I got a
ugly as
sale. There was a sale. There was a oops bucket. When we went to the paint store, like brown paint for free.
Yeah,
pretty much.
So anyway, I ended up in the band, and I mean, I'm not shy at all, but around these guys, I was just like cowering. I had no self-confidence because I'd never done this before. I had confidence in my abilities, and I knew I could sing, back up, no problem. I was singing. By then I had been singing at my high school for 4 years. I was president of the choir in senior year. It just was, I had confidence in my ability, but just as far as my place in the band, I was just that young girl that I didn't know what I was doing, but they just helped me along. And, Doug even tried to get me to do some like fun moves. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Doug had swag. I mean, he was a performer. He'd been performing in bars
Oh,
and
Ron did too.
yeah, Ron too. These guys, they knew how to not just play and write and sing and, you know, do their instrument, but they were like showmen. They had been in the world for a long time doing this, and it just kind of oozed out of them, just this fun, you know, goofing around on stage, and their personalities just showed. But I was just like, you know, just afraid to move. And so they kind of helped me along.
You guys sounded great on the album. Bob, you said that you were in the band prior to Mariko joining. Where did the band name come from?
Oh, we were throwing around names and we couldn't land on anything. And so we had asked one of the pastors at the Harbor Church, John Reynolds, and man, do you have any ideas for band names? And he goes, what do you think about Battlecry? And I go, man, that's awesome. So I brought it back to the guys and we all signed off on it right away. We thought it was a great name. And
he was my youth pastor, just a dear,
just a great guy.
Great guy.
So that's where that came from.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, you guys, as I mentioned, it's great rock and hard rock, and it's filled with Christ's good news on here, and I appreciate that. Bob, you alluded to this a little earlier when you were talking about the Jesus Freak movement, and you were given a track and stuff. I'd like to ask, when did your all's respective relationship with Christ begin?
I guess when I would say I was legitimately saved, where I surrendered myself to Christ, would probably be, gosh, just pretty much right before the band started. And then that was probably 1982, you think, or three?
I think 1983.
2 or 3, somewhere in there.
Well, no, I graduated in 1982, so it wasn't 1982.
It'd have to be 83.
83,
You were like 18 or 19 back
yeah.
then. Yeah. So that's one. I came around. And then what about you?
So I had a bunch of girls in my high school choir just praying for me. I was one of those radical. I was that Paul that would just shoot down the Christians, persecute them. You guys just are fools. You don't know what you're doing. And there was just a group of high schoolers, and they would sit on both sides of me in choir, and they would just, you know, be talking to each other about how to get saved. And I'd be sitting there going, oh my gosh, you guys are idiots. But come to find out, you know, my whole junior year, they were praying for me. And the summer between my junior and senior year, I got invited to go to a youth camp, and I went. And all the kids were partying, goofing off. They were drinking beer in the car on the way to camp. I mean, it was just like, there was nothing different about that than the world. And so when I later that summer got invited to go to another youth camp, I thought, oh yeah, that'd be fun. I'll meet some new people. And well, these kids were radical. They were radically saved. They'd been through a lot of stuff and just were so in love with Jesus. And it was a whole different experience. And I said no, I didn't want to go, but they paid my way, because I said, oh, I don't have the money to do it. And, you know, I don't want to sign up. They're like, we're going to put a deposit down for you. And they did. And I'm like, shoot, now I got to go, you know. But I went and I got saved. And that same group of people, I'll be forever grateful to them. They discipled me for those first couple years, and at that church youth group in Harbor City, Harbor Church, and we're still friends with them to this day. One of them ended up becoming his business partner for many years. We're going to his daughter's wedding in a couple months. I mean, we've been lifelong friends, but they really took me under their wing. They taught me basic things like, what is Easter? I thought it was the Easter bunny, you know. What is Christmas? It's not Santa, you know, come to find out. So they just really taught me everything. And I'm so grateful for that youth group, and John Reynolds and Ken Schreiber. Ken Schreiber was one of my youth pastors. So they just really discipled me.
Very cool. Very cool. getting into this EP some, because here we go with Battlecry, and y'all mentioned it started in 1983, and as we know, this was released in 85. A great 6-song EP with studio tracks. Now, as it is, Bob, 2 of my 3 personal favorite songs on this album were actually co-written by you. That's the title track, Red, White, and Blue, and Not Tough Enough. Both great songs. And I also really love You've Got to Know. I think that's a great standout.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Super song. And but Bob, I'd like to ask, with regard to Red, White, and Blue and Not Tough Enough, my other 2 top picks off of here, what was your part in co-writing those, and how long did it take for you to write your part for those songs?
So the way we did this was, I was telling Mariko earlier, the way Ozzy Osbourne writes his music is he gets his guitar players to throw out music and he puts words to it. So I put together some music, and the guys in the band go, yeah, we kind of like that. I put together kind of a verse and a chorus, and then Doug would just put words to it, and they came together quickly. I didn't spend a lot of time with them. There was one other song on the flip side of the cassette, Battlecry. I don't even think it's listed. Is there a song called Battlecry on there?
There is. There's the 2 songs from the live portion were Battlecry and Back to the Rock.
Yeah.
Those were Dave. Dave wrote.
wrote those.
I wrote Battlecry music, and Dave did Back to the Rock on everything.
Now, you
Dave
know, there's a blast from the past, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Tune in. There's the crew. Now, the gentleman with the checkered scarf, that's Dave Chumchall, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, because I've noticed, and maybe we can talk about this at this juncture then. I noticed, there were, when I first accrued this tape from my mom, and we'll talk about that later, but there were 5 fresh faces on there, but I got to noticing after a period of time that, wait, there's 6 names. And so if you don't mind at this juncture, tell us about the situation regarding Doug Morris being on the studio side and the Dave Chumchall for the live side.
Okay, well, back to the Chuck Smith. You guys know who he is, right?
Yes, sir. The
He
pastor.
was doing Saturday night concerts, and it was like a big thing
Thousands
in
of
Orange
kids
County.
were
And
coming.
so, he would have Phil Kagi, Randy Stonehill, all,
Sweet Comfort Band.
and there was also a band called 441. If you remember them.
441.
Yeah,
They
and
were friends of
so
ours.
they were slated to headline, and they asked us to be the warm-up band. And so when we got there on the day of the concert, they go, well, 441 got the flu, and so you guys are now the headliners. And we're like, what? And there's like 3,000 people there. It's a big place. And so there was the other band that was underneath us. They got set up to the warm-up band. So we did it. We played there, got a standing ovation.
It was fun.
And then the guy that was putting on the concerts, his name was Randy Ziegler. And he goes, you guys are blowing my mind. He goes, I absolutely would love to help you guys get a record deal. And we're like, oh yeah, we're all excited. Well, at that same juncture, Doug Morris had a friend that knew who was Chris. You ever heard of Chris Christian?
Yes.
Okay, so he was his Arrowhead delivery man. So he brought one of our cassette tapes to Chris Christian and goes, hey, check out these guys, Battlecry. Well, immediately he wanted Doug, and he heard it, and he had a special thing he wanted to do with them. He wanted to use him for a radio jingle for
Called Turn to Me.
There's a song, if you look, you can find it. It's called Turn to Me for KYMS radio featuring Doug Morris. So they did a big thing on the radio saying,
It was
we got
all
this
over the
mystery vocalist, and they were really pumping it up. And he ended up recording that song all the way across the nation for all those Christian stations that were owned by that same affiliate. And so he thought that was a sign that he wanted to be a solo guy. So he thought that was a sign And so it broke all our hearts because we had all this momentum.
We were just firing on all cylinders, and we
And-
got along so well. We were like a family.
And so,
But I think he thinks he kind of got the impression that Chris was offering him a solo deal. And so he left the band to pursue that, but nothing happened. He just sang that song for them, and that was the end of it.
yeah, he just said, "Well, keep writing songs and send them to me after that." So, and nothing really, happened for Doug on that. And then at that same time, did we meet Doug ahead of that? I don't know.
Dave, yeah.
Doug. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so Dave, I think he was in that kind of circle. He was living in Long Beach in a basement of a church or something, and he got wind of us somehow and asked to audition for us. We needed a new lead singer, but we had already recorded that whole album, which is another interesting story of what happened with that. But the album was done and it was getting ready to be pressed, I think, or it may have already been pressed in the works, the contract signed. And now we lost our lead singer. So we brought Dave on. He just turned out to be great for us. And he was our new singer. He wasn't the voice on the album, but he was our new singer in the band. So that's how his picture ended up on that album. It was a little strange. And then he ended up being on the B side, the live, what did they call that? Bootleg side.
Bootleg. And so they were on the bootleg side, they wanted it to be on a cassette, similar to like if you brought your boombox and just hit play and record it.
They didn't want it to sound great.
So they wanted it to be kind of gruffy, something. So what we did is that Long Beach church that we had talked about previously offered us the building. So we went and we did a live recording, and it was done on 2 tracks. That recording is a 2-track reel to reel.
It was awful. I think it was awful.
And we did it no overdubs, one time through, one pass. And it actually came out pretty decent,
for what it was.
I mean, you couldn't really hear, the great, fidelity on the instruments, but it was a 2-track recording, one take. And were you gonna say something on that?
No.
And so that's why they wanted it to be, this bootleg type thing and not released onto the vinyl side, because if you were going to do a bootleg, it would only be on a cassette.
Yeah. And we didn't particularly like that idea, but at the time we had a manager and he really pushed for it and kind of went forward with it without our approval. And, it was a little upsetting. I was just embarrassed that quality of recording ended up out there. But, they really did want it to be like, oh, somebody snuck in the concert and got this recording, and now we're going to put it out to the world. It was kind of a gimmick, I guess, but we weren't totally on board with it, but it happened.
Well, in hindsight, I think that it's nice to have. I'm at least glad that, that it was preserved and everything, the 4 songs, and we got to hear Dave Chumchall and then there was the 2 extra songs, Battlecry and Back to the Rock. But I was perplexed. I didn't really know until years later when I picked up the vinyl that I didn't realize that it was a cassette only release. Of course, I should say I've forgotten, because I was looking at this just the other day, my cassette, and right here on the spine in real small letters, it says contains 4 non-LP bonus tracks. These 6 songs, though, on the EP, and I want to say this, viewers out there, keep in mind, this was 1985. This was 1 year before Saint released Time's End, 1 year before Bloodgood's eponymous album. This was 1 year prior to Hell with the Devil, and 1 year prior to Rock for the King by Barren Cross. And so that's how early this release was when it came out, right during the Soldiers Under Command era of Strike.
Yeah.
Bob and Mariko, I want to commend you all on this because for 1985, the production on this is actually quite good. It was very well done. And, pardon the terminology here, but I'm thinking of, in particular, a certain Christian prominent record label in the 80s, but it was kind of a crapshoot with what you get on quality, even from this big label at the time. But this held up really well production wise. How long did it take you all to record from start to finish the 6 songs on this EP?
It wasn't, gosh, I don't know if we did a timeline. I would say a month. We did it straight through. All of Doug's stuff, of course, was one take.
Well, he one taked everything.
He one taked, and then I think the drums, we did a few takes on them.
I actually had to, I'd never been in a recording studio before. And I remember I would have to speed up some of the recordings to do my takes because I could play them cleaner if I played them faster. And then they used those tracks. But, and we didn't, by the way, we didn't record this. We did all the recording on our own through a friend's recording studio in his basement, in the basement of his house.
And you're talking about quality. So this on the vinyl is actually an 8-track reel-to-reel. So we were ping-ponging all over the place. So we're like, any place there's, the vocal stop, there'd be a lead solo in there, and then we do vocals again. And we ping-pong the heck out of that thing.
But he was really good at what he did.
Yeah,
he knew what he was doing.
He could do a really good recording, and fidelity-wise, he had all the right gear, and he had all the timelines and stuff like that, which were pretty expensive pieces of equipment. The Lexicon stuff back in the day.
His whole basement he had turned into a recording studio, and I don't know. Did you want to share what happened?
Yeah, so
it's a sad story.
Yeah, so we were getting ready to start recording the second album, and we were talking with Bill Baumgart. I think it was after, but Randy was actually the producer of the album, was actually murdered
in the recording studio that we recorded it in.
And so we lost all the originals, through the, it was all, I think the family got it. And it was just like, we never were able to get any of it. So all the masters of Randy's masters were, I don't know where they are now.
Probably in police vault somewhere. It was a really sad story. And we heard about it, I think, on the radio. But he and his girlfriend at the time, she had spent a lot of time during our recording. She was always there, just hanging out. And, we kind of were living in his basement practically. We were there so much. So we got to know them really well. And he was an old buddy of theirs from high school. And when we found out about it, we heard that, not only did he pass away, but his girlfriend did too. They were both murdered, and it was by an ex-cop. And he actually committed suicide after he killed them. But the week before, our drummer Brett had gone to pick up a piece of equipment that had been left down in that basement. And it could have been even days before this happened. And another guy on that day that the murders happened, he was stopping by to pick something up too, and he was murdered as well. So we always thought, that could have been Brett. That could have been any one of us, actually. And just wrong place at the wrong time. A really, really tragic story. He was in his 20s as well. I think his girlfriend was in his 20s. These were young people, and I don't know what they got caught up in, but they weren't Christians. So we don't know what they were involved in, but apparently it was something that we didn't know about at the time. But we did a benefit concert for him and his girlfriend and the families, and a memorial concert for them too. But it was a really sad ending to that recording studio.
You pretend that you don't see. You say it's cool, but it's not for me. You turn your head the other way. You're hoping maybe that will go away. You can't go on believing lies. I think it's time you realize. Open up your eyes.
Did you all have plans to record a follow-up full-length album was my next question. And I think, Bob, you've already answered that. Did you already have songs in the?
We had a couple. Battlecry was one of them. We had a really good studio version of that, and that's one that I
We lost
really
that,
miss.
yeah.
I had one rough mix that he had done for me, and I lent it to a friend, which I should have never done, and he never gave it back to me. So that is lost forever.
yeah.
But that was, I mean, just the live recording of it. But the
Yeah.
studio version was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was with Dave, and it was
No, it was, yeah, with Dave.
yeah, with Dave. Yeah. So we had started on the project. It all kind of came to a tragic end.
And then Back to the Rock was another song we were working
Mhm.
with. We had about 4 songs we were kind
Yeah,
of playing around
yeah.
But nobody, for instance, and I know that Brett has passed on, but like Dave or oh shoot, who was the bass player in your band?
Ron
Yes,
Simmons.
nobody else has a copy of any of these songs in any manner.
No, I think it was in the basement when that tragedy occurred.
Brett may have had, Brett was he was the guy that had like a zillion cassette tapes, and he probably had a
He
copy.
may have,
I
yeah.
have no idea where those ended up, but he would always be mixing us songs of all kinds of stuff. He every time you saw Brett, he'd be giving you a cassette of something to listen to.
And I may still have the cassette. He mixed me 2 cassettes when I first met him, because he wanted to help me. Like, this is how you listen for keyboard sounds and to get ideas for what to add, because I didn't know how to write my own parts or anything like that, or how to pick sounds. So he would make me listening cassettes, and he was just the sweetest guy. I mean, Brett was just the most gentle hearted, soul. And so yeah, I may still have those cassettes somewhere, of just like songs that featured keyboards, and I would listen to those over and over to get ideas for sounds and ideas for parts. So yeah, he was the cassette guy.
So I was 14 when I first encountered Battlecry, and all that I had ever known was these 5 faces that I saw smiling back at me. So with regard to Brett, we would like to respectfully remember him here. Bob and Mariko, would you please paint a picture for us of the person that Brett was?
Brett was a very meek individual,
Quiet.
very humble,
Soft-spoken.
very encouraging, just a great guy. He was, again, like we met, we did a lot of shenanigans together when we were in our 7th and 8th grades and through high school. But just actually, he was actually a drummer in a band with my brother-in-law before I even started playing, and I was their road manager and light guy.
This is high school band stuff.
Yeah, this is like high school, but yeah, just a great guy, very caring. He actually got divorced from his wife, and which she's she still loves him.
We're in touch with her.
Yeah, we're still in touch with him, or her and the 2 daughters, and he raised the 2 girls. But
she kind of got off track for a little while, and now she loves the Lord. She's recommitted her life, and yeah,
he never really, his goal, he didn't have a backup plan. It was, I'm going to make it
music or
music. So
nothing.
he was, had the jobs, not really career jobs, but he had a lot of jobs, and he would always have, he was always playing in a band. And the last I heard, I think he was doing some country stuff, and he was out in the Lancaster, Palmdale area of California. But yeah, just still trying to make it.
He just really cared for his girls. He took them everywhere. He had his wife, Mary, beautiful person. And he just, when I think of Brett, I think he's just the most humble, giving, very giving person. And I think about him all the time. He was a good guy. He was one of my best friends. when the band formed, two of the guys were married with families, and they were old. Like I said, they were 28, 27, 28. I mean, they were old. I was just this 19-year-old, teenager coming in, so intimidated by these guys. And Doug had an 8-year-old and a 7-year-old, I think. And Ron had a little boy that was 3 and another one on the way, Lauren, and Brett and Bob were single. So we hung out the most. We would carpool to rehearsals together. We also did a Bible study once a week as a band. So I spent the most time with Brett and Bob. And so we hung out a lot, so it was really sad what happened, that he died so young. And I believe it was due to complications from diabetes. He had developed diabetes, and
He didn't take care of himself.
he didn't really, after the divorce, he didn't really, I mean, this is speculation, but possibly didn't have the financial means to really get the health care that he needed. That's a guess.
I think
that would be my guess. And he just wanted to try to take care of it on his own, and it got him.
Brett had the nickname Kick, K-I-K. I remember that. And it said, instead of drums, it said metallophones inside the Is that due to Brett playing the drums that he got the nickname Kick, as in kick drum?
Yeah.
No,
Wasn't it?
no. The manager put that on the album, and we didn't even know it until the album came out. And we were like, what?
What is that? He was trying to be edgy, I think.
Yeah, that was the manager's little input into the album.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, we all were kind of like, what?
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And we started, then he became Kick after that.
Yeah. I think
Kick Keys.
Back in the 80s, like you saw all the hair, right? That was
Sure.
a lot of hair. And the red, white, and blue, we wore red, white, and blue to everything. My keyboard was striped. The drums were striped. It was back in the 80s. It was all about the show, So yeah, it was all about the gimmicks. And, Stryper had the yellow and black. And so we got the red, white, and blue, and we're all patriots and love our country. And so that was our thing.
We were, we would just stack cabinets. We just buy cabinets, and they
stripe them.
Stripe them,
Red,
set
white,
them
blue.
out there. We didn't even hook them up. We just had all these cabinets we would bring.
Yeah, it was all about the show. And the funny thing is now we play in a band too, and I have a red keyboard and a Korg and a vintage. And I, for fun one day, because we play these July 4th gigs, big festival, and I striped my keyboard like the old Battlecry, red, white, and blue, because it was 4th of July, and I never took it off. I'm like, this is kind of a nod to Battlecry that I'll leave my stripes on.
And here in just a little bit, we will talk about your all's current band, Vinyl Ride. So friends, stick around for that. Y'all mentioned that second album, and I'm so brokenhearted that, of what happened. But Bob Mariko, did you all have a working title for that second album?
No, we didn't.
No?
We
Okay.
did not.
Well, then my next question is this. I know that finding any of those recorded songs post Red, White, and Blue is next to impossible. But do you all have, and I believe you all still have communication with Doug and Ron, and you all own the rights to your songs, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we copyrighted them.
Oh,
The legal rights. Yeah.
I had looked up that someone re-released the album.
Oh,
There was a
really?
re-release on the album, and I don't know, Green World went out of business. And somebody, they said, second pressing it's like 2008 or something. Someone, I saw it online,
Oh, wow.
which I thought was kind of interesting.
So Rex and I, we always do our research, I mean, we have the bands on that we know and love, and just because somebody hasn't been on, it's probably just because we haven't gotten to them yet. But in doing my research for Battlecry, because officially speaking, this has only been released on cassette and on vinyl, I did notice a bootleg out there on CD.
Yeah, see,
What?
that's what I mean. We never did that. Someone re-released it and it was on CD.
I did not know that. Do you
Yeah.
have a copy?
No, I do not. I do not. And it had some foreign language writing. So I think it's an
Wow.
import from somewhere that's a bootleg pressing. But
Oh my
where I was
goodness.
going with this, because I'm pretty certain you all own your own the copyrights to your songs.
Mhm.
Do you all happen to have any, aside from the bootleg on side 2 of the tape, do you all happen to have any quality recordings of some of your songs that are non-studio tracks?
Brett would have been the guy that
Yeah.
archived all those.
He
And,
was
I wouldn't be surprised if his daughters kept them because they were, they
I wonder if I should ask him. We are in touch with his daughters. My gosh, that would be a fun thing to ask them if they
Well,
kept his things.
Here's where
Every
I'm
now and
going
then
with this.
yeah,
I'm
we
just-
look through I said, sometimes we have a lot of old pictures, and
I have the
if I
picture.
find a picture of Brett, I'll send it to his daughters to see if they've already have a picture of that, so they have a memory. But yeah, other than that, Brett had he archived everything pretty much. He had, I would say, hundreds, 200-300 cassettes.
He was the keeper of all the things.
And when we would play, I had a boom box. It actually did pretty decent recordings, and we would record. We just set the recording back by the soundboard, and we would record. We have the sound guy just flip play, and we would record usually every time we played. But I don't know where any of those tapes ended up.
Yeah, that would have been the Brett files.
Well, I'm still a physical media guy. CD is still my preferred means. I just think it would be awesome. I didn't know if you all and Doug and maybe, Brett's estate, if you all ever thought about getting together and releasing kind of like a total package of this great EP with the bootleg stuff and maybe any other quality recordings that you all might have of some nature. I think that would be awesome.
Wow. Yeah, I never even thought about that.
How long was the band together for?
Was it 4 years? I mean, in total, I think it may have been 4 years.
Yeah, three to four years.
Those first I think those first 3 years we went hard. I mean, we were playing sometimes once to twice a week. We were doing Bible studies once a week. We were rehearsing once, when we were playing that much, we weren't rehearsing, but
we would play once a week.
Yeah, we were playing a lot. It was all Southern California. It was a big thing. All those bands that you probably know, the Barren Cross and the Neon Cross and 441, they were all local bands in our area. Striper, we were on the same distribution label as they were, Greenwell Records, and we actually got to attend their record release party for Yellow and Black Attack, I think it was. So we were there for that. And we had a mutual friend who was a guy, Steve. He went to our church and he would lead Striper's Bible studies. So there was all these connections. We would be hanging out together with other bands, and it was a small world of Christian rock in Southern California in those days.
We did have a management. change somewhere after the release of that album, and we picked up, her name was, I think it was Karen Armstrong, and she worked with the Benson Group. I don't know if you ever heard of those guys. So we were actually represented by them and our last music endeavors. And she was married to the bass player in the Front.
Yeah.
You remember the Front, Tommy
I do,
Thunderbird?
yes,
And
Tommy
yeah,
Thunderbird.
they had an album that was on #1 for, gosh, I don't know, it was like 3 months or something. It was crazy.
That album is incredible, Bob. And
It-
Tommy's vocals are
Oh, I know.
spectacular. He's an awesome singer.
And so the bass player, I forget what his name was, but he was married to our manager. And so we had, she was getting us in to play some places.
She was, more a professional manager. Our manager before that was more like, hey, we can't continue doing this by ourselves. We need help. And he just came in and kind of helped. But yeah, we really felt like we were on the verge of taking off to the next big thing. So losing Doug was really difficult. And, I can't, we can't, you've heard us talk about Doug. We can't say enough about how talented Doug is. And just, one take everything, never sang a bad note. One time, oh man, I have this memory. We were playing at this outdoor park and we always would preach, not we meaning we, but Doug and Ron, would find some place in the set to preach and do some kind of an outreach and invite people to get closer to the Lord. And we were at this one park playing and Doug paused and started preaching in Spanish. And like, we're looking at each other like, did you know he spoke Spanish? He's just preaching in Spanish and all these Latino people are coming forward and he's talking to them afterwards. I'm like, man, what is this? This guy is like amazing. But he is a real special guy when it comes to just who he is and his musical talent. And Doug's got swag too. He just was such a good front man.
My son does a lot of recordings. If you look at, if you want to look up some of his stuff, it's on same last name, Jacob is first name, but he's got some stuff on YouTube. And we usually would rent a beach house in Huntington Beach every summer, and we invited Doug to come down.
And Ron, yeah.
And so we all got together. And
Guitars,
my
living
son
room.
had done recordings, and so Doug brought his acoustic, and he just started playing and singing. And my son goes, "Oh my gosh!" He goes, "I've never heard someone fill the room like that." And my son has perfect pitch almost on a spectrum. He's like, and he goes, "That guy has perfect pitch." He goes, "Yeah." I've been blessed to always find good singers, and be able to play with them. And Doug was one special sort, though.
Yeah. When you have that good front man, it really takes your band to the next level.
But you may want to try to look up that song "Turn to Me" that Chris Christian did for KYMS.
You can
Radio.
find it on a Google search. I may be able to even send a link.
We'll try to find it. Yeah.
I'm not sure if you guys put links in the.
We do.
We do.
Yeah. So that would be a fun one to listen to because
Sure.
it was a full length song as a radio jingle. It was very unusual. And I don't think it's happened since. I mean, it was pretty cool. We would hear that song on the radio like 20 times a day. And it was all across the country.
You've been waiting for so long, and it's not fair. Nobody loves you, and the ones that say they do don't seem to care. And nobody else feels your pain. Sometimes you wonder if you might be going insane.
Back then, was there no way, because from what I understand, it wasn't anything bad. It's just Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just that Doug thought he was being led in another direction. And therefore was there ever a time where Doug came back and said, "Hey guys, is there any place for me back here with the band?" Was there something that could have been worked out, or did that just never happen?
It never happened. Years later, I remember discussing it when we were hanging out together, just with the guitars in the living room type thing, just getting together because we hadn't seen each other so long. And I thought I had a memory of him, or maybe I was chatting on the side with his wife. I can't remember where I got this from, but I have some kind of a memory, a shallow memory of that he wishes, not that he didn't do what he did, but that maybe there was a little regret. I don't know. I don't know if there was any regret. I mean, you can't live in regret, but that we had such a good thing going and it came to such an abrupt end. But I'm not sure. I mean, I don't want to get the story wrong.
Kind of maybe a
Me
what
personally,
if.
I always think, what if he would have stayed?
Oh,
And
man.
because
Yep.
Randy was just about ready to get us, Randy Ziegler from Calvary Chapel he knew, we would have Sparrow and Word records come out to all of our concerts, and he was about to help us, get signed on. And then that right after that Chuck Smith thing, I think the week after that's when that was like the pinnacle of basically our time together, was that Chuck Smith playing at Calvary Chapel, and I think he quit the next week.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah. And maybe that memory was just him saying, or his wife telling me that he had said that, maybe he wondered what would have happened if he had stayed. I don't know. But
Rex, were you going to say something? I'm sorry, buddy.
Well, I just what Bob said there, like maybe not regret, but more of a what if thing. Like,
right,
what if
maybe.
what if I wouldn't have left? What would have happened? And
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Bob and Mariko, the other thing that I'm wondering now, because you mentioned that it wasn't that long ago that you all got together with Ron and Doug.
Yeah, not too long ago. And we're still, gosh, I talked to Ron's wife still a lot. They ended up in Texas, and I talked to her a lot. We do a lot of text, message type stuff. And so we keep up with them and their grown children. And haven't talked to Doug in a while, but that was probably maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But we always get these people who are kind of old fans, like, oh man, you guys should do a reunion concert, and our son could play drums because he's a phenomenal drummer, but like, who's going to put that together?
So, Bob and Mariko, something else I would like to ask you, if it hasn't been that long since you and Doug and Ron have met up, would this be possible? If what I'd love to see would be maybe the classic album on a CD and kind of do like a then and now, like have this, and then if you all could get with Ron and Doug and maybe your son and re-record the songs, and plus include a studio version of Battlecry and Back to the Rock and maybe any other songs you might have had in the works, that would just be awesome. Have y'all ever thought anything of that nature?
I think logistically, my brain goes to logistics. Doug's in California, Ron's in Texas, we're in Nashville.
Dave's in Ohio.
Dave's in Ohio now. He's still a vineyard worship leader. He has been all these years. And let's see who else. Yeah, so that's the 4 of us, or Dave. But now people are recording things just virtual. It's all virtual. So I hadn't really thought of that. Have you?
So yeah, my son could put it all together.
And our son's a recording engineer.
I don't know how good technical Ron and Doug would be, but I'm sure Dave was very technical as well. We talked to Dave probably within the last year.
Yeah.
And he goes, I think I'm the oldest worship leader in the United States.
I must be the oldest full-time worship leader. And I just retired from worship leading like 2022, I think. So I was definitely the oldest worship leader.
Well, at the very least, one of my all-time favorite bands, have y'all heard of Daniel Band before?
Oh yeah.
So I love Daniel Band, but something they've done in recent years, I think Retroactive Records has been re-releasing their stuff with Daniel Band's consent. And on their classic albums, they have just, as a bonus, have put 1 or 2 new songs on there with the old classic albums. And so at the very least, I'm just wondering if maybe the 6-song EP couldn't be re-released and remastered. And maybe if you could just at least record Back to the Rock and Battlecry in a studio recording setting, you know, to kind of flesh the album out. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I just have high hopes. I'm sorry. Wishful
Yeah, that
thinking
would
on
be
my
fun.
part.
That would be fun.
We've been sent by God Himself to tell you of His love. You've got to know. You've got to know. You've got to know that Jesus loves you.
Guys, kind of in concluding with Battlecry then, and y'all talked about kind of being there at Stryper's Yellow and Black Attack release party and knowing the Barren Cross guys and stuff. With regard to Battlecry then, do you all have any specific memorable band moments, whether funny stories, scary mishaps, or times of incredible ministry, such as whenever, was it Dave speaking in Spanish or Doug?
Doug.
Doug.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had looked at that question prior to the interview, and we had the same memory. And it was we were playing on Catalina Island for a youth camp and didn't really think through the logistics of that. But it was a nightmare. Not the concert, but we had to drive load the gear from our rehearsal space into the trucks, drive the trucks to the dock, unload the gear onto the ferry. And then the people from the camp met us in Avalon, and we had to unload from the ferry onto the dock, and then unload from the dock onto these boats, these like
Little tiny boats,
like little pontoon boats.
little ski boats.
Yeah, they were just like little boats, that you would ski behind. Exactly. And then from there, load them onto another little dock where the camp was, and then wheel them all up the hill to this hall. And we're like, oh my gosh, this was like, we are not getting paid enough for this.
We brought a full PA system too. They didn't
Oh.
have a PA system, so
We
not
did
only
everything,
we had
yeah.
drums, PA, guitars, amps.
Oh man,
It was
it was
fun.
exhausting.
But a funny story is a couple of them is I was working. Everybody had 2 jobs back then, but the younger people, when they think you're on an album, you're a full-time musician. So I was working in this house, and it was a pastor's house, and the kid, I was talking to his son, and I was like, oh, what bands do you like? And he goes, well, I like Stryper. And he goes, I like this band Battlecry too. And I go, oh, really? I go, I'm in that band. And she goes, what are you doing working in my house? And I go, well, we're all
We
kind of
need
doing that. I
money.
remember working on a job. I worked construction, and I think it was the Altar Boys, and the guitar player, he was doing sheetrock, and he had his hair sticking straight up, and I was talking to his boss. He goes, yeah, this guy's he's a nut, but
Mike Stand.
is it? I think, yeah. Did he work construction?
It was either Mike Stand or maybe it was Jeff Crandall. No, Jeff was the drummer. Steve Paneer.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I think it
Yeah.
was him, the guitar player, and we were working on a job together, and I just thought it was kind of funny because I think we had just done a meet and greet with the Wild Blue Yonder. You remember Crystal Lewis's band?
I do.
And a couple of the other bands. I can't remember which other ones.
Oh man, I can't believe you remember all these bands. Yeah, it was a small circle of bands. One other memory is we did an event at Arrowhead High School up in the mountains, Lake Arrowhead in the Southern California mountains. And so we drive all our gear up the mountain, and then we got snowed in, so we were stuck there. And that was a really neat gig. It's all high schoolers, and they had a motivational speaker there. It was a really fun time, but we got stuck there, I think, for 3 days, something like that. And then Bob wrecked his truck sliding through the ice into a pole or a tree or something.
I was just having fun.
He was just goofing off and slammed the brakes on. Watch this. And then next thing you know, we're wrapped around a tree. But we were engaged by then. Yeah, that was fun.
My last question pertaining specifically to Battlecry then. So Bob and Mariko, on the album, you still had your maiden name. My question to you both, did you all know each other then prior to the band, or was it through the band that you all first met?
We met in the band.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So
Yeah.
let's go now. So I was pleased in doing the research. You guys are still playing music and your band is Vinyl Ride. Just tell us all about your band, Vinyl Ride.
Well, again, Mariko came in on the last half. The band,
With the last member.
yeah, the band started 10 years ago. And I think there was 2 worship leaders, Chris Davis and then Ron Elm, who's the lead singer still. And Ron and I are the only longstanding members who've been there for 10 years. And so at one point, I think we lost the bass player, and then my son came in and took over the bass duties. And he was a graduate from Musicians Institute, BIT, and I'm going to brag on him. He was most outstanding bass player student of 2009, I think it was.
His picture still hangs on the hallway of the Musicians Institute. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, so he's a really good bass player. So he
he's
took over, and he's like super quiet, no drama, and very, very different from the previous bass player we had. So
they had to let go.
Yeah, so drama dropped a lot. And then we swapped drummers out. And then we got another guy. He's actually works at a church too. And then more recently, Ron's daughter, Lindsay Elm, with an M on it, Elm, not L, because there's a Lindsay L that does country, I think. But Lindsay Elm, she was on season 9 of The Voice.
She got a 4-chair turn.
Yeah, so she's one
amazing.
of our singers. So we have the father, the daughter, and then my whole family, and then our drummer Jacob.
And she's now Lindsay Guerrero, but she was Lindsay Elm on The Voice.
Yeah, and then so Mariko came along, and
yeah, so Chris ended up moving. He was a founding member. He moved to South Carolina. Sorry, get them mixed up. And he said, you really should replace me with a keyboard player who can sing, and it would be good if it was a girl, because the band was just all guys, it was a dude show. And so I had actually been at that first rehearsal when the band formed 10 years ago and played with them, and I'm like, yeah, I just think I'm too busy for this. I don't think I want to do it. So I just declined being in the band 10 years ago, and then
she paid the price.
No, I enjoyed just showing up and getting footage for them or whatever, and not showing up sometimes whenever I wanted. I was just very busy at the time. Mm-hmm. And then Chris takes off, and I'm retired now, so I have time, and it sounded like fun all of a sudden. So I kind of replaced him, brought in some keyboards to the band, which, if you're a classic rock 80s band, you need keyboards. So I brought that to the band, and then I added vocals. So we've got Lindsay and Ron, who are father-daughter, and then Bob and I, who are married, and our son as the bass player. And then Jacob, not our son Jacob, who is also a drummer, but another drummer named Jacob, who's just a great guy. And we just all get along so well and have a lot of fun together. So we do classic rock hits.
And you can find us at vinylride.com.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, Mariko, you said you were bringing keyboards back to the band. Bob, are you bringing spandex back by any chance?
Yeah. It kind of looks more like a water balloon with a rubber band around the middle.
Friends,
I wear the
we'll post
spandex.
the links. I will post the links below to Vinyl Ride, vinylride.com and facebook.com/Vinyl Ride. You can find those links in our description below.
We're also on Instagram,
Very
Vinyl Ride. Yeah.
If you could make a brief statement to leave a lasting impression with your friends and fans out there, what would you each wish to tell them?
Oh gosh.
You first.
Oh man, I have to think about it. It's like so profound. You want it to be really good. Okay, well, I'll just go off the top of my head. God is faithful, and he's faithful through every generation. And for us, we have seen God move so strongly in our family. Neither one of us came from a Christian family, but when we got saved, and especially when we got married, we decided that we are going to raise our kids to love the Lord, and we're going to raise them in church. And there was always music in our home. And so we just kind of, everything that was in us and our souls and our spirits just kind of spilled out onto them. They're all married now. We have 6 grandkids, and, God is just faithful. We made a choice a long time ago, 40 years ago. Wow. Has it been that long? To, just to put God first and put him at the center of everything, whether that's playing in a classic rock band or raising our kids or, just putting him at the center. And we never got it perfect, but we did a lot of things right. We did a lot of things wrong, but there's so much grace. But, I would just say, especially if there's any young people listening, just you have the ability to start your own legacy. We're the first Christians in both of our families. And now our kids are serving God. Our grandkids are being taught to love God. And, you can really have an impact. And then there's people like you, Kent, who, you found us when you were 14 and we spoke into your life. Or Rex, people like bands like us that spoke into your life in a really meaningful way. You never know if your actions, who it's affecting. So, we just really want to keep God at the center and let that just flow out of us in everything we do. So I guess that's my best advice. I'll probably think of something really great later after we shut the
really
camera.
good. I would also say that to any younger aspiring musicians or even older, stay the course. I still, there's a lot of power in music. I mean, there's a whole book in the Bible about, the Psalms, and David, how he was a songwriter, and there's so much power and it can affect people. I mean, when you think of music and you think of King David being called to calm down Saul, his headaches, right, by playing the lyre
And his anxiety.
And so there's a lot of power in music, and the guys in Striper are still doing it. I wish we would have been able to do it, as long as a band like that, but they're still affecting people. And I would say stay the course. And again, my wife had already said, we still are very strong in our faith. We still do worship music. We just moved to Tennessee, so we haven't got really plugged into the church music scene, but we are actually security guards. But yeah, our family, being that we're the parents, we, raised our kids with music in the household. And we didn't mention that between all of my family members, we have a full Partridge Family band.
Yeah.
We have, my daughter also sings, and she can just do great harmony, and it's just a phenomenal singer, and just has a great
worship
talent.
leader.
She's a worship leader as well. So
Our oldest son is a drummer. He plays every instrument. So if you go on his YouTube channel, which hopefully we can link, some of the songs he does on his YouTube channel is him playing every instrument and singing every note and recording I mean, he's a genius recording guy and just has that musical talent. And then our other son chose to take all of that talent and focus it on one instrument, and it really shows in that bass playing. So, but were you done? Sorry.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll tag team off of that and say, you know, we were also the first musicians in our families and had that drive. And so we brought that when we were raising our kids. I taught them all piano before they learned another instrument. And then they could, you know, play with whatever they wanted. Our middle son wanted to play drums, but he didn't really end up liking it. Our older son wanted to play bass, and he ended up being okay, but he wasn't passionate about it. They flipped instruments one day and just like soared. And, you know, so I would just encourage parents to, even if you're not musical, if your child shows an interest, whether it's sports or, you know, whatever their interest is, just really encourage them in that, because everyone is born with such God-given talents. And if you can get that to come out of your children, or even some of us in our generation to help your grandchildren, you know, just to bring those talents out, your kids will be so much stronger for finding their talents young. You know, it saddens me to one of the things I hate the most is seeing people who have so much potential and it's never realized, you know. So my parents were really encouraging to me, and let me try everything, and then something clicks. And we did that for our kids. And I just want to encourage parents to, you know, when your child shows interest, let them try it. And maybe that's not going to be their thing, but just let them try as much as they can so they can find that one thing that God has really gifted them with, because everybody has something. And just to, you know, let them soar.
Thank you both. Thank you both for being here. And at the end of every episode, you know, Rex and I, we like to keep the main thing, which is the Lord and his word. And so we always, we call it Message from Home. We read a brief portion of scripture, and it relates to the band in some manner. And friends, whenever you view this episode, it should be airing on May the 11th, the day before Mother's Day. And so, Bob and Mariko, there's a special link that I have with this album, and I'd like to just briefly share that story. When I was 14, and it's funny, we were talking about Stryper and the Yellow and Black Attack. And of course, that came out in 1984. I had actually acquired Soldiers Under Command first in 85, and I was still on the hunt for the official Yellow and Black Attack album by Stryper. I had dubbed my cousin's copy off on cassette. So I was going to school one day as a 14-year-old, and my mom was headed to the big city of Little Rock, Arkansas. And I said, Mom, please, you know, if you would, go by the Christian bookstores, see if they have Yellow and Black Attack. So I came home from school, and there on my bed was this sack from a Christian bookstore, and I reached my hand in and pulled out a cassette, and it wasn't Yellow and Black, but it was Red, White, and Blue. And that's when I first, you know, learned of Battlecry. And like I said, I got a lot of good mileage out of this little cassette. Very good music, and you guys have stuck with me. And I'm going to be reading from Proverbs 31, 28 through 31 here in just a little bit. But in light of Mother's Day, this album, I've always enjoyed it. But it's all the more special to me now because in 2017, my mom went to go live with the Lord in his kingdom. And so now what this is, it's not only an album that I enjoy, but I recognize it. It's a symbol now. It's a symbol of my mom's love for me. They didn't have Stryper in stock. She just could have said, okay, thank you. But I still remember her telling me verbatim. She said the the store clerk said that if I liked Stryper, I would probably like this new album that just came out. And so because my mom loved me and she knew how much I loved Christian rock and metal, she bought it for me. And it's all the more special because it's a symbol of my mother's love. So not only do I, think of great music on here, and it's such a treat to meet you, Bob and Mariko, but I always think of my mom's love. And in light of that, Proverbs 31, 28 through 31, it says this. It says, her children arise and call her blessed. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. And so I'm just saying I am so thankful for my mom, and I'm singing her praises even today. And to all of you moms out there, happy Mother's Day. Mariko, happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you.
Just want to thank you all for making this episode so special. So thank you all.
And the next time you're lonely, instead of bearing your own pain, why not call on Jesus? This is the reason he was slain. Jesus bore your sorrows and your pains upon his cross.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. That story
Yes.
means so much to us.
Friends, I want to wish all you mothers out there happy Mother's Day to each and every one of you. Happy Mother's Day, Mariko. And
Thank
I was
you.
certainly blessed with my mom. I also want to wish my wonderful wife a happy Mother's Day, more than I deserve. Great mom to our children, a great wife to me, puts up with me, and a great grandmother. So thank you to my wife. Again, happy Mother's Day to everybody, and we'll see you later. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Thank you.
You've got to know. You've got to know. And you got to